Thank you for being here. I don't know how the workshop is going to look like, but I'm open to everything that comes up. If you have, so you don't need skills in dancing, okay? I'm not a dancer, but I just love to allow my body to move. So the invitation would be to just do whatever feels right for your own experience, okay? If you have some limited mobility, that's fine. We won't do anything complex, but we'll just explore together. And the topic for today is dancing our way through polyvagal safety. And I've been in touch with the Polyvagal Theory since I did maybe the compassionate inquiry training and then trained in safe and sound protocols. So I'm doing safe and sound protocol interventions, the music therapy for regulating the nervous system. And my intention for all of you today would be to find ways of moving from one state to the other, okay? Because a lot of the times there's the implicit memory. We don't remember what happened in the past, what were the events, but we feel in our body. We feel our body some immobilization or chronic mobilization, right? Hypervigilance, for example. When I was preparing for this conference, especially as we are getting closer, a lot of the days I would just wake up and say, I'm alone, I need to do everything by myself, I need to take care of this and that, and I have goosebumps when I speak about that because it was the implicit memory of I need to do everything by myself. And then it took a conscious effort to look around and see, hey, I'm not alone. But that was the first response that was coming up for me. Okay. So the invitation would be to connect with different states within your body and see what's your home away from home. If your home away from home is to be mobilized, always in alert, or rather immobilized and have a sense of I'm overwhelmed, I'm alone, a freeze. So I won't go very much into teaching. I also know that there's also the need of moving our bodies, and we've done a lot during these days, right? And the intention would be also to just allow some release and integration and regulation. But I just want to briefly mention the different states of the nervous system, and I know all of you know that, but maybe it would be helpful for the online audience as well. And also talking about online, so thank you all for joining. Whenever there's an invitation of you to share with a partner, explore, connect, if you're alone, joining online, you can take care of the surroundings, so you can create a bit of space for you to move. And after each of the maybe different steps or phases of the workshop, you can take some time to journal, draw something, just connect with your body and see how it lands for you. So when talking about the polyvagal theory, and the topic for today was polyvagal safety, right? And the safety, we know that it's not only the absence of threat, it's the presence of connection. And the elements of safety are context, choice, and connection. So I want us to explore together what are the individual... Sorry? The three elements, okay? So context, choice, and connection. And thank you for actually asking the question, because maybe it would be useful to spend a bit of time here, right? If we were to think about our let's say traumatic experiences, and I'm not talking about the big T trauma, but maybe the developmental trauma also, not being mirrored, not be attuned to. A lot of the times there were things happening and we didn't understand why they were happening. We didn't have a context. There was no one to speak to about what was happening. And a lot of the times we didn't have a choice. things were as they were, and we were just needing the attachment relationship, because we know that human beings cannot, we need that, right? We cannot live without the attachment. And we also need connection. And we are wired for connection. And whenever that wiring is broken, so just have this image in your mind of a child reaching out, and then the response is, I don't have time for you. Not now. Or you're too much. I'm suffering. I'm busy. What happens with the response, the embodied response of going towards something or someone? It gets stuck somewhere. So there's the dynamic of, I want to go for something, I want to reach for connection, but at the same time I'm afraid of connection. So there's also something constricting that movement, that impulse, right? Okay. So just imagine that the nervous system is always scanning the environment around us. And the intention would be to put us to make sure that we are safe. So we are always scanning. We are scanning what's happening in our environment. For example, if you'd hear a loud noise, as it happened with the headphones before, I noticed it in my heart rate. There was an instant mobilization. I could feel that energy in my body. So I'm prepared to do something about it. I immediately stopped because I realized it was because I, turned this on. So we are prepared to respond in a certain way, okay? We're scanning what's happening in our environment. We're also scanning what's happening in relationship to another person. And we know about these mirror neurons. So for example, if I were to look at you, for example, and then see an expression of fear on your face or an activation, I would also be in alert. Oh my God, something is happening and I need to be aware of that, right? And for me personally, I give this example very often. I notice that for me it's triggering when I'm connecting with another person and I don't see any expression on their face. So there's kind of like this poker face in a way. And I realized that, of course, it's my own trigger and personal process, because I'm projecting a lot. If I don't see any expression, then I'll ask myself, oh my God, I said something stupid. What am I talking about? They lost interest. They don't care about me. What's that? Again, maybe an implicit story, a story I'm telling myself, and which has nothing to do with what's happening in the relationship. So we pick up on all these different cues, the body language, the facial expressions, the tone of voice. A lot of the times, and I remember when I read that, and it stuck with me when I read Scatter Minds. And there was an example in the book when there was a father who was rushing or something, asking the child to put the shoes on, and the girl took much more time than the father wanted, and he started to lose patience in a way. Okay, let's hurry, we need to go. And at some point the girl says, why are you yelling at me? And in the book it said if you were to measure the volume, that wouldn't have changed. It was the same. But actually what the little girl was picking up on was the energy behind the words. So it's not only, the volume, but what's the energy. And I realized that sometimes I did that in my relationship. So because I'm trying, and you know what Gabor says about trying. There's no such thing. Try sitting down, right? I was trying to be calm. Guess what was happening inside of myself? I wasn't calm, right? And then the partner says, oh, why are you yelling at me? I'm not yelling at you. Then I actually start to yell. Okay, so we are picking up on all these different cues from people. And we are also receiving messages from our internal organ, what's happening within our bodies. And based on these different cues, we can be in one of the 3 states of the nervous system. If I'm safe, then I'm in ventral vagal, the parasympathetic branch, and we all want to be there as much as possible. And that's the state where you are connected with one another, where you are present, where you can be playful, where you see possibilities. Okay? But when we perceive a sense of threat, we go down one step on the mobilization. So now we're activated. The mobilized, there's the energy in our limbs. Now we're ready to protect ourselves, to fight back. If the mobilized energy is not enough for the nervous system to perceive that we are safe, then we go down another step on the most ancient form of response, which is immobilization. As you'll see in animals, for example, when they play dead, in ourselves is the moment when we feel frozen. And how many of you were in situations or in conversations with someone, for example, when you were discussing something, were fighting, and then you felt that you don't have any words for it. And then after the conversation, you were telling yourself, oh, I could have said this and that. Why didn't I say this? Right? And it's also very important to understand that it's not something that we're choosing. It's the system that's doing this for us in order to protect us. Like victims of abuse, for example. There was no other way. You couldn't have fought back. That was the only way you could have protected yourself, to be in the freeze state. And when I said that with the mobilization, that once you're mobilized, and then if the nervous system doesn't understand that, okay, the energy is not enough for the nervous system to understand that you're safe and then come back to safety, he puts you into dorsal vagal. I remember when with the headset incident at the beginning, so I realized there was a mobilization. I stopped, and then the danger stopped, so I could come back to safety, right? If it didn't stop, if, for example, I don't know what would have happened, but it's, yeah. And it's also important to understand that all of these states are good. There's no one better than the other. And we need all of them. We need a mobilized energy to do things. I need mobilized energy to explain things for you, to run this workshop, for example. But this is done with safety. I didn't lost contact with safety. If I were to lose it, you would feel that, because I would have been in a triggered state. And we also need immobilized energy also. But also needs to be in contact with safety. Okay? And throughout the day, we are just fluctuating from one to the other. And the question would be not why am I mobilized and judging ourselves, why am I immobilized, but what is it that I can do for myself in order to come back to safety? And it's important that if you go down the stairs, you go one step at a time. If you go back, you also go the way you went down, right? So from a frozen state, you need some mobilized energy to get you out of there so you can go into the safety, right? Okay. And during this workshop, what I want us to explore together is to find those resources within our bodies that will help us climb back into the safety ladder. And you realize also with your clients, for example, when you're working with them, they're just doing things naturally unconscious. Some starting rocking, soothing themselves, touching in a certain way, right? So it's the body looking for regulation, looking for safety. So this is what I want us to explore together, our own personal ways of coming back to safety. Good. All this being said, are you ready to move a bit? Good.